Months the word.
Actually feels good as it.
Study stress and we're seeing all sorts of things. Right.
What do I even do with this? Do I, when does it get,
I just at 5 o'clock, I'm thinking that.
do I do it any other time or just when we adjourn or when I like something?
Keep order. You can.
Brandon.
You're the president, you get the call. You do you.
Ready for it? Huh, it really is. Oh, it's pretty cool. It's 5 PM. Let's get started. Sorry, I believe you coming. Okay. We'll get started with our meeting. This is a special meeting, not at our usual date. Oh my gosh, it's everywhere. Thank you. Thank you. Not at our usual date. This is a special meeting, which normally would have been held in November, but was scheduled out into December due to Thanksgiving. So tonight it is December 1st, 2022. Thank you so much. Oh, gosh, what did I do? Thank you. December 1st, 2022, and I'll call this meeting to order. Can I please get a roll call?
Absolutely. Erica Libanow,
I am here.
Matt Altman,
Here.
Terry Clark,
I'm here.
Bob Davis,
Here.
John Ward,
Here.
Julie Peterson,
Here.
Scott Olander,
Here.
Michelle Worrell, Jeff Yamada,
Here.
Dr. Tim, here, Dr. Tim O'Brien,
Here.
Jason Adler, oh, okay, Vicky Machoro,
Here.
Amanda Scott,
Here.
Rhonda Holden,
Not present.
Ron Erlacher,
Here.
Stacy Olay,
Here.
Dee Dee Utley,
Here.
Tricia Senek. I'm so sorry. Mandy Olson,
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you very much. We'll start with the approval of the agenda. If we get a motion to approve.
Before we do that, can I ask real quick?
for sure.
The November 28th minutes?
Sorry, yes,
Do we
let
need
me,
to add those?
sorry, let me make that announcement that we will be adding the minutes of the special meeting that was held November 28th. And we'll be putting that in the consent agenda with the 27th and the 7th on line A. So when we get to the consent agenda, please note that the November 28th special meeting is part of that.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Been moved by Matt and seconded by Bob to approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Just one time for this, and then I won't do it again. Thank you. Okay,
We're not doing the,
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
one quick thing, there's one correction on
Sure.
page 3 of the, page 1 of the consent agenda, page 3. Under number 1, Bob Davis, I just know my motion of Bob Davis, second John Ward.
Oh, look at that.
oh, look at that. Thank you for catching that. Wow,
Well, board and John. Yeah. Here we go.
good catch. Yeah, I don't know, mine just
So with that,
corrects things that it wants to do.
with that change, I second.
Okay, so Matt has, right, moved.
John.
John and Matt has seconded to approve the consent agenda with the amendment of the November 28th special board meeting and correction to the minutes to reflect Bob Davis. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. That also passes. All right, moving right along to public comment and announcements. If you have a public comment, please keep your comment to 3 minutes or less. State your name and address. And please be advised that we do not respond to public comment during open session. Does not sound like we have any public commenters. We'll move along to presentations with Ginger Haber, Ellensburg School District Superintendent, with an update on local schools. Welcome, Ginger.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I've been sitting all day, so I think I'm going to try to stand up and have a little energy here with this. Really, thank you for having me, and you have my PowerPoint. sent it. Was really dull about that. I do have my computer too.
Uh, let me go see if I can get it on.
Okay.
I apologize.
Right. So while he is doing that, I just want to take time to thank all of you. I was just thinking about one of the community awards I was able to give out this year was to Chief Wade for his dedication to our school district and to our community. He was so helpful during the pandemic and helping us with safety. And then I was thinking all the way back to this room, and right at the very beginning of the pandemic, we had a staff member who had returned from Hunan, China, and had some symptoms. And I just remember, I thought, I didn't know what do you do with this, right? Because it was just when COVID was just becoming a thing. And so I called Dr. Larson, and Dr. Larson said, well, we're about ready to have a meeting at the hospital, just come on down. And I thought, wow, I mean, I was fairly new to Ellensburg still at that time. So I sat here, and I know Julie and Chelsea and Dr. Martin and folks were all here, and we just brainstormed together. And I'm just so thankful for all of you in our community, because I know as a school district, it would have been very difficult to be as successful as we were during the pandemic without the support of our community. And I really felt like we came together and we were tight. I had the opportunity to meet with other superintendents, in the Yakima Valley and up and down. And the support and the way that this community came together for the vaccines, for all of that, was really unmatched compared to what some of my colleagues were experiencing as superintendents in other places. And really, because of the community effort, we were able to open all of our schools October and late October in the hybrid, where we had students going 2 days a week, and also bringing kids in on Wednesdays who needed extra support. We opened in October and none of our schools closed, not once. We had maybe one life skills class that had to close for a couple of days. But other than that, we were able to stay open all year. And by the end of the year, we were able to bring all of our students back, because they changed instead of it having to be 6 foot apart, the health department changed it to 3 feet. And so that allowed us to bring our students all back. But everywhere I go, I just brag about you guys and Ellensburg community and the health community, and how I just felt like we all really embraced each other and helped us through that. And as much as we could be, we were successful. And so I want to make sure to thank you guys for that while I'm here.
I think my predecessor might have received it. I never did receive it.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Right. It's the pictures that.
I understand.
I see it not on the screen. Beth, can you help? Is there a port on the TV for the US, for the CPU on the
The
wall?
Zoom console, there's maybe it's gonna take.
We'll do it.
There's a way to link the computer to the Zoom console. Yes.
Well, that was fun, yeah.
What are you trying to
I think
do?
it's Bluetooth. We have a laptop that we're trying to share a screen from through the Zoom console.
So, in the
Do you understand? Yeah.
shared meeting, you can see the website to go into.
Here to just email it to get this.
Can you put that in the chat?
Yeah.
It should pop up on the,
But then you have to.
The idea of passcode to join this meeting and share.
That's
it.
an
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have your Zoom link though. No.
I have if you give Zoom on your computer,
Okay.
you can just join.
So what do I do? You want me to type in Zoom on screen?
Yeah, try that.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
I think
Yeah, let's do that.
We jump around a little bit.
So that's in here.
Talk about the contract. Erica, in front of you, you have 5 copies of a 3-year agreement that we reached with
the Washington State Nurses Association. WSNA represents about 125 of our employees here. We negotiated, we had the Human Resources Department, tremendous support of the Human Resources Department. We also had Vicki, Dee Dee, Amy, who am I missing? John. And HR at the table. It was a very successful negotiation. We always begin those negotiations by calling out, we believe we have a very good contract to begin with. We adjust those things that we need to in response to working conditions and the market, but by and large, we leave the contract alone as much as we can. So, I always learn so much from the nurses that you sit across the table from about, how their lives have changed, how the workforce has, how the workflows have changed for them. At the end of the day, it was their, we ended up with an adjustment on January 1, and the pay period does begin January 1 this year, of 13% to the scale. The 3-year contract then called for an additional 5% in the second year and 5% in the third. We feel that those numbers are actually make us very competitive in the market. We think that they do reflect the market. I would like to thank the board because if you'll recall, our contract was one of the latest contracts. So we saw the hospitals around us implementing increases beginning back in March and April of last year. So we really were feeling like we were stepping out of line, that we weren't as competitive as we needed to be. The board agreed to make the January 1 adjustment back to July 1st of 2022. That was an exceptional step for the board to take, and that is exactly how it was received by the nurses and by WSNA. That was a gesture of faith and a gesture of
Sarah May, dial 440, Sarah, 440, please.
And a recognition that the market was moving. So I want to thank you for that. The other thing, so in the first pay period of 2023, our WSNA membership will receive that lump sum retroactive payment. The other thing that I think was very well received was the unilateral adjustments to our benefits that Human Resources recommended and put in September of this year. Both of those, I think, again, the board or the membership of WSNA recognized that the board was really acting on that principle of becoming a employer of choice. So thank you for that. The membership ratified the contract, and I understand that it was very well received and that we had the support of most of the membership. So I'm asking the board to approve the 2-year contract with WSNA for 2023.
Right. We get a motion to approve this contract.
Move to approve. Go ahead. Yeah, I move to approve. I'll second it.
Moved by Matt and seconded by Terry. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. All right.
Departments that the negotiations went very well and that there's mutual respect for the administration.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much.
And again, thanks to the team. The conversations at that table are just very real. You know, it's about how the work gets done and about what's up in nutrition and how we can continue to take care of patients. So I very much appreciate it.
It's a great update. Just really great.
You ready?
I don't really know. Thank you very much. All righty.
Somebody else is going to
So then, yeah, go to the back.
I apologize for that.
No problem. Hey, all right. Oh, thank you. All right, so we just have some really great things happening at Ellensburg this year. It has finally started to feel a little more normal. Even last year was a little bit of a challenge. The first semester, still having to wear some masks, still having to adjust to the waivers and all of that. But this year we've really started strong. I'm super excited about what's going on in our schools. So we were very honored to have, as you know, our girls basketball team took state last year, and they were the grand marshals in the parade. So we're very proud of them. We have a great partnership with CWU. They come out every year and welcome our elementary students in, and this was right at IDA, our brand new school. And I told you about the community award that I was able to give to Chief Wade at the beginning of every year. And this again was the year where we finally were able to do it again after 2 years of not. We have all of our staff members come back to Morgan Middle School, and we have a donuts and coffee, and then have a such time together to just say, what's our vision? Where are we headed? And really this year it was all coming all around that belief that all students can learn at high levels. And it's up to us, our job, to ensure that that happens for our students. We have 3 student board reps, 3 students on our school board, and student voice is really important to us. They do not have voting rights, but they definitely share their student reports and they get share their experiences. If there's a policy they're interested in, they have a chance to share their thoughts around that. They also help me lead a group that we call the Student Senate at the high school, and they meet to with the focus that we've had this year is around belonging. After COVID, still, I talk to students and they're still kind of adjusting to, talking to people in person and not on Zoom, but that they really crave those connections. And so our student board and reps are really focused on that for the whole student body this year. Pacific Education Institute is a statewide organization, and we're partnering very closely together with them. They promote outdoor education and project-based learning. And that's one of the goals that we have in our strategic plan is we want our students to have more authentic, more hands-on experiences and more experiences to go in the outdoors. If you haven't had a chance to be in our new schools, and Julie, if you guys ever want just a tour for this group, let me know. Because in the design of both Mount Stewart, the new Mount Stewart and Ida Nason, one of the goals, and we went over and did a field trip on the west side, was to bring the outdoors in. So you see lots of glass and sunshine, and we have a beautiful courtyard in the middle of both schools. And then at Mount Stewart, we moved the school so that outdoor education area we used to just kind of sit off by its own is right behind the school. So both the Ida students, Mount Stewart, were encouraging folks to really use it. And what I want to point out is over here, this part talks about economics, cultural engagement, and integrating tribal sovereignty and analyzing social systems. So this is really important because when we talked about having a brand new school, how do you name a brand new school, right? But you name it after geographical things, or what do you do? And we thought that, I'll just kind of go back to this one for a minute. What the board formally adopted, I had a chance to meet with PEI representatives. And I thought this would be a perfect framework to support the culture at IDA, which is now IDA. It wasn't named IDA at the time. So I shared this with the committee. They liked it. We took it to the board. The board formally adopted it as the cultural framework for IDA. And so that part about integrating tribal sovereignty, when we brought our naming committee to be, and anybody who wanted to could be on the committee, what I told them was the only guideline that they had in the names is it had to connect to the field STEM model. Well, immediately the naming, I didn't prompt them, went straight to the tribal sovereignty. And it was really important to them that this would be an opportunity to honor our Native American heritage, which is very rich here in Kittitas County. Most of you may know that our whole valley, Kittitas Valley, was the gathering places for many of our surrounding tribes. And every year they would have a time together. And so the naming committee went through several different ideas. Chief Alhai was one, Chalohan was another one, which means the meeting place. and then Ida Nason Aronica. And Ida is really one of the prominent leaders in our community. She married an Italian man, and when many of our Native Americans were told that they had to leave this area and go on a reservation, she was able to stay, and she kept her ranch, and she was very involved with education. She worked, in the schools to share her love for the land, to share. She was very good with horses, and she also helped to establish the rodeo here in Ellensburg. And that was something I really was like, oh, we got to tie the new school into the rodeo somehow too. So I was super excited that she really embodied all of that. So the naming committee came eventually to the board and said, we want to name our school after Ida Nason Aronica. And we are really fortunate. Again, we have such a wonderful community. The Ellensburg Museum here in town, we have a partnership with them, and we have actual artifacts now from Ida. They keep all of the Ida Nason Aronica artifacts, and they let us keep them in the display case, and we get to, trade them out. And I'll tell you, it was, and this dress here was worn by Ida's, I think it was her mother, when Chief Alhai signed the treaty in 1855. And so that was pretty cool. We had a standing room only for the opening night. Did any of you have a chance to be there for that? It was amazing. We must have had at least 250 people there. We had members of all different tribes come to help honor Ida Nason Aronica, and this is her son, Alan. And it was, I would say it's one of the highlights of my career because when Alan and his brother spoke, they spoke of the hurt and how hard it was when they were displaced out of the valley. And then looking at everybody in the audience, just all kinds of people, right? Truly a representation of the community and coming together. He said something like, this is like the start of a real healing process in our community, and we've come full circle. And I'm looking at the pencils like, don't cry, don't cry. Coming up in my throat. But it was really an honor, and we asked the whole Aronica family to come up to the king. So we're super excited about that. Joanne Duncan is the principal, and she is integrating some of the stories from Ida and very much honoring Ida through some of the assemblies and other kinds of activities that they do. And then, of course, we have Lincoln, our celebration of remodel, if you haven't had a chance. The community, when the bond project was first put together, said they didn't want to level Lincoln and build a brand new one. They want to keep Lincoln. And so if you go in, the checkered floor is still there. We had a great opening. This little girl here sang the Star Spangled Banner a cappella, and she was amazing. I was really proud of her. And so that was just a really great event. Carol, picture over here, she's been at Lincoln, I think, for like 38 years. It was just a really great community event, and we're just thankful to our voters for helping us pass that bond project. And this is a construction project, not as big as buildings, but this is Lily. And for her community service project, she literally built a sensory wall. It took her a full year, like 4 months of planning and a full year to put it. And if you ever want to go into Mount Stewart, I'd be glad to show it to you, but it's on the wall in the autism program. And we have, I think the overall state average is like 12% of our autistic students. And we were at like 15% last year. And we have this amazing facility. We have 2 huge rooms for students, but the whole wall was built by this high school student. And when you go up, you can see, there's all these different textures that they can touch. And so we're just so proud of her and her contribution. We have a great life skills program all the way through K through 12 in Ellensburg. And so this is an example. It's called Tasty Treats Day. And the life skills students at Valley View, for example, they make Italian sodas, and the students with the make-believe money that they get through the rewards program can go and purchase treats. And this was just a picture of the fun run. We've got great support from our parents. We're finally able to have this again too. which is just one of those time-honored traditions that are at Valley View. This is Morgan Middle School and their life skills program. One year they made coffee, roasted coffee, and sold coffee. This year it's been popcorn. That smells amazing. And they came and presented at the board meeting and gave us each a bag, and it was absolutely delicious. And the teacher, Joan Smith, if you know her, she's been here a long time and she's amazing. She says, well, you have to show them these two cards, report cards. So every day the students get feedback, and this student wasn't doing so well, and then by the time at the end of their time in making popcorn and stuff, she gave her the feedback that, yep, you're making some great progress. But the students love, and it really is starting to teach them some of those life skills. This is one of our high school students, and she put together for the Day of the Dead, just to honor that tradition. And she got together with some of her friends, Abitsi, Vincente is her name, and she got some of her friends to put together a whole video on what the Day of the Dead is about. And really it's about honoring members of the family that have passed. And so students had a chance to put their favorite memories of their family members that have passed to celebrate their life. And so we really embrace all cultures and want everybody to feel like they belong when they're in Ellensburg School District. This is a new program we started in our elementary school libraries this year. It's called Stream. And the library time, we thought, let's really expand that and really help students to go deep and with some of the stories that they're learning, and not just read it, but also be able to do an art project with it, or to tie it to a science lesson or a math lesson. And so these students at Valley View read a whole bunch of different books about fall, and they went out and they took a walk around the campus and sat under a tree, and they talked about what makes leaves turn colors, and they read some books about it, and then students had a chance to do an art project on that. So it's called Stream, Science, Technology, Reading, and Engineering, Art, and Math. And so it's really tying those subjects, doing some painting when they're in the library based on what they're reading, and students love it. I've had a chance to visit several of the Stream classrooms, and the teachers are really having fun. The librarians got together last year. They're continuing to build those experiences for students based on their interests too. One of the classrooms I went, one of the library, it was a library, Ida, was called Star Books. And the students had a chance to sample what kind of book they like to read. And then she designed the whole library based on, here's all the train books, and here's all the animal books. And so students, once they kind of knew what kind of books they liked, knew where in the library to get it. So I'm super excited about what's going on in the elementary libraries. Career Pathway is huge in Ellensburg, and we have several different CTE programs where students have an opportunity to earn college credits. I was just in the welding, and we have a full welding facility and a car. There's a car in there with engines, and we really run some phenomenal through programming for welding and mechanics. That I think we're only one of 5 schools in the entire state that have that kind of facility to offer that program. So it's fun for me to see that again today. And we're super excited. We have a partnership with Habitat for Humanity. Our students in those programs are building the sheds for I think it's the new Stewart community. And so just really appreciate being able to partner with, again, we have a great community here in Ellensburg. One of the main focuses that really help us to support student achievement, help meet the needs of every student, are these professional learning communities. How many parents do we have in here? So, on Wednesdays, and thank you, we end the school day a little bit early, and our teachers meet in what we call professional learning communities. And that's the time for them to look at student work together to try to decide, okay, who are the students that are struggling across all 3 classrooms. And then this year, started last year, actually, we started a program called WIN. So that's what these folks are doing. They're looking at all of the data, and for this one, it was around math, to say, I think it's like 3 or 4 times a week, the students go and they meet in smaller groups for about an hour based on the skill that they need, the work that they actually need. And they're not stuck in that group all year. It's flexible. because these teachers have this time on Wednesday to actually come together, look and say, okay, for the next wing round for next week, what if we put the students in this group? So they're sharing students too between teachers, which that's the way it should be, is that, you know, third grade, it's all of our kids, not just the kids in the classroom. And teachers are embracing that. We have amazing teachers. I just love going around and taking pictures of them and just being a part of that process. And I'm going to end, we just had this, the World Cafe. I don't know if you saw some of the signage that we had. It was amazing, and we're going to have another one. So the City of Ellensburg School District and Ellensburg School District and CWU, we're partnering together, especially with the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Commission at the city. We're partnering together, the three entities, to host conversations within our community about what does it mean to feel like you belong. And so we didn't know, it was over the 3-day weekend. It's a Saturday from 3 to 5, and we just put it out there. We had no idea how many people would show up. We had about 70 people, and people just kept coming in, and it was awesome. We had several Spanish-speaking families that were there as well, and translators, and the questions were around belonging. So people sat at tables, and they had 4 rotations. Every table had a facilitator. I was a facilitator at one. And they had about 10 to 15 minutes at each table, and then they'd have to get up and go to a different table. Every table had a different question. And they were asked to discuss the question at each table. And then at the end, they came back to the first table and then shared out what were some of the learnings that they had as a result of those conversations. So it's the example at my table, the question was, what do you have to give up when you're part of a group to feel like you belong? And we've all been in those groups where it's like, yeah, I don't feel like I quite fit in here. So, you know, and sometimes maybe there's something that we feel like we have to give up because, you know, we feel like we don't belong. And we had a great conversation about that. I think that it was pretty eye-opening, especially I know at my table for some of what was shared, especially by one of our Spanish-speaking families, just sharing some of the things that still happen in Ellensburg. It was, I felt like we read the feedback. I got together with Heidi and Dr. Cleary, who is the Division of Equity at Central, and we're reading through the feedback. And it was very positive as far as, wow, you know, lots of times people were asking for more time. We wish we had more time to talk about these things. So then, of course, the question, well, what's the action? What came out of it? Well, what came out of it was an opportunity to have the conversation and to hear somebody else's personal experience. And, you know, there's so much power in taking that time to hear about somebody else's experience. And I know for me, in my own journey with equity, that is really one of the major factors that's helped me to move along, is hearing about other people's experiences. So we're hoping to host another one in the spring, and I'll share that out on the KCHN network this time too, and would love to have you guys join us. And I'll end with again, a thank you to all of you. We just recently announced yesterday that we do have a school board opening, and I know you already serve on this board, but if you or anybody know of anybody who might be interested in serving on the school board, we would love to. Just want to put that out there because we're always looking for. So thank you again for the opportunity. I really do appreciate you guys and your service.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that bridge tour, visual tour through the district, and a lot of it I'm familiar with, and there's a large amount that I didn't know about, so that's really appreciated.
I have a question.
Yes.
Even with kids intermixing in different groups like that, we've still kept infections and things. It hasn't been a health concern.
No.
Wow.
Not that we know of. I mean, I know RSV and you know, some of that is going up. I haven't heard that there's been, you know, large numbers of people who are students that have been absent because of illness. I know the season's just starting. So, but here's the good thing. When you ask that question, the way we built the schools is every school, including Valley View, because they already have it, have open spaces outside of where the classrooms are at. So when the kids go into small groups, they're not all like in this classroom. They get to go out into these open spaces. So when you walk through, we have some real nice space, I think, inside the classrooms. The other thing too is that we were at like 500, 450 in each of our schools last year. And now that we went from 3 to 4 schools, and thank you parents, I know that was a transition, right? So I really appreciate that we were able to get through that. We have about 300, 325 now at every building. And so to the space piece, we actually have more space to be able to move students out, which we're really thankful for.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Other questions? Yeah.
The presentation.
What projections for growth as far as in our student population is fairly flat as far as what they're projecting or?
Yes.
Okay.
So nationwide, it's enrollment is down. We just did our enrollment report yesterday, and we have, I think we're at 300 or 3,117, and we had projected at 3,142. So we're still down like 20 or more students, which of course affects our budget. The good news is that, well, we know that we have approximately maybe 200 families right now that homeschool. And we haven't been able in the past to offer like a parent partnership program where if they want to come in and just get some extra consultation for math or science or whatever. And we just hired this amazing principal who comes from Kwame, her name's Rhonda Schmidt. She is revamping our alternative program to include like a big picture, which also involves internships and mentorships. So I'll probably reach out with you, Julie, to see if there's anybody who would want to help us with that. But we also are going to start a parent partnership program here, and that will help engage some of our homeschool parents to be, somewhat a part, and also can help our FTE. I also met with one of the developers, and I've seen all the different neighborhoods in the north end that are being planned to be put in, and we also know there's some, at the south of Mountain View. Who knows, with inflation and the interest rates and all that, if it'll continue. But I would say, speaking with the city several times, 2 to 3 years, I know they say, well, in Ellsberg, they've always been saying that we're going to have growth, and then it doesn't happen. But I think it is going to happen. So I'm really thankful that we'll be in a good position with our schools, I think, to be able to absorb that when it does.
I think you're right, and the growth happening, and COVID showed us that a lot of people don't necessarily have to be on site when they work, and people have so much more choice about where they're living now. Ellsberg's a great place to live, and people know that, and I think they're gonna come, so. Again, thank you for the great presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to reports and dashboards, we'll start with Chief Quality Officer, Haley Wilson.
So I just want to add to my report that you have there starting on page 23. I told you I'd give you an update on flu numbers. So of our 734 employees, as of yesterday, I believe, 74% of them are vaccinated, so 539 is for flu. And 479 of those got their vaccine at KVH, which is great. Our workplace health and employee health teams would really appreciate the workplace health clinic getting those flu shots to our employees. And we had quite a few volunteers, so big thank you to them. We did have 127 staff who declined, that's 17%. And we do have a group of people who we don't have documentation yet that they were vaccinated or whether they declined. So we're working hard to get that information from staff, but we're being a little more lenient than we have in the past with the staffing challenges and
the fact that we're all still.
we're all
We're doing that.
which is what we would require if someone's not vaccinated, but we're all so. And I do, have I had Anna's graph in there, and it is just, gone up. Influenza's yesterday surpassed RSV. We are seeing COVID numbers go up too, so it's like, triple threat there. And have seen our COVID admissions go up a tiny bit, so. We're working hard on that. I'm sure others will talk about what we're doing there in the clinical areas for that. So other than that, I'd be happy to take questions. Yeah.
When a patient comes in with a history respiratory illness, it's determined testing is needed. Is there a general battery of tests that's run to rule out the, common bad actors sort of things?
There's a couple options. I mean, you might.
The one that we're relying on most heavily is blood valent test, the test for influenza A, B, COVID-19, and RSV. Thank you. That is predictably becoming in short supply. We have BioFire tests, which is a 22 antigen panel that is very expensive and trying to reserve its use. But those are kind of the front line. Older tests, we have rapid flu, honest spots, but the quadrivalent is really the one that we're relying on.
And if nothing shows up on that, you would pursue only if there's a suspicion that really something particularly bad is going on. Otherwise,
Yeah. So the question when you're testing is how is it going to change your treatment plan? And if you've got somebody with respiratory symptoms for 6 days and they're maintaining their oxygen saturations, they're around why would the testing in the first place? And tell them to stay away from people until they feel better. There's not going to be a specific treatment for what's going on at that point. They're out of the window where you're treated. But the patient that you're seeing earlier in the disease process where you might be able to treat influenza.
Or COVID.
Or COVID. So again, it's Dr. Hibbs and I were discussing earlier today, when would you use BioFire at this point? And if you suspected a bacterial process that you were going to use antibiotics for, the BioFire would steer you towards a test for both viral and bacterial pathogens. So yes, we have testing. Yes, we have our frontline and yes, it's minimized.
thank you, that helps. Clarification on that.
Let me just emphasize that we're going to take up, like Mandy says at the top of our report here, we're going to take up the coffee plan at our QI council meeting on the 12th. So if you have comments, please get them to her by.
Erica, I apologize, but there is an additional amendment to the agenda under finance. Depending on what the board does with regard to the expansion project award, we will have a resolution to issue that. So I apologize for that omission. And it is resolution 2213.
2213. Okay, thank you. All right.
We have to start the meeting over.
Yeah.
Go get Ginger.
I mean, we don't have to start the meeting over. I'm just wondering if we need to approve a revised agenda.
Do you want to do it now or after the next?
It's possible action, so it should be on the agenda. I would appreciate it if you could approve the agenda with that additional.
I'll make a motion to review.
All right, that's moved by Bob,
I'll second.
seconded by John, that we approve the agenda with a modification of the debt resolution added to the finance section. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Passes.
I have a question for Mandy.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that this patient fell and hit her head. Now, I've been to a lot of hospitals I've been to, like, they actually would give you a choice to be in a wheelchair, to be escorted out of the building. Is our policy such that at some point it's just resistant?
We're not gonna push someone down into a chair.
Okay.
So you're not gonna have a point where you're gonna physically, they're part of the care team.
Yeah,
And so this is often a component of falls even on inpatient setting where the patient, you explain to them to use a towel light, that they're a 20-something-year-old that had an
Invincible.
appendectomy. And Matt, I may have been that person at one point, thinks that they're fine, right? They're 20-something, they can walk. And so it's really explaining to them, like, this isn't about me saying, you know, how would you feel if I would feel terrible if you felt, please call me. It's better if you call. So sometimes there's a lot of different tactics we've used to help patients understand how important it is to get help and that it's not about, you know, them not being strong enough or we think they're weak or that they're helpless.
a discount off their bill.
Yeah, but patients do
$10
have choice. They have a say in their care.
Let's do that happens.
I like your patient stories, and
We,
it's always good.
we were blessed to get a ton.
That's the one. My first dad told me that even if I was dying, she was driving me out home work. And he had to come here, and he's like, "Oh, this is so much better than me." That's really good.
They're really great.
Yeah, really good.
And it's nice to see they're in many different places too. So I think people really are having that kind of like a KVH experience, you know.
Well, and now I mentioned, like, you know, you see it on the face, and that is really true. Like, if people are happy in their job, you'll see it. Just how
People with the mask on.
Yeah, but even through that, you can see through the eyes, and see if
Absolutely.
they care about their care.
I'm glad you like them. I will keep including them.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mandy before we continue? Thank you. Great, and Julie Peterson, Chief Executive Officer, we've already had the exciting approval of the WSNA contract, that's excellent.
I'm happy to answer any questions, but I did want to give you a couple of updates. First of all, I want to thank the foundation. As I reported, we're seeing an uptick. I think some striking numbers. Washington State has 100 pediatric ICU beds and 584 pediatric acute care beds. Yesterday morning, there was one pediatric ICU bed available in the state, and there were 11 acute care beds available in the state. At the same time, there were 17 kids, acute care kids boarding in emergency departments waiting for those beds. So this is, again, it's not like all of the patients in our emergency department are pediatric patients, but it's not a population that we typically admit. So we transfer these kids, and that's becoming more and more difficult. Vicki and Dee Dee can speak to that in operations. But we reached out, our pediatric clinic is working very hard to keep patients in the outpatient setting. So to see as many patients as possible, they're changing up the way they're scheduling. They're going to scrub some of the well children visits out of there and reschedule those, because we do have a third pediatrician starting in January. So we should have some additional availability, but we want to keep those kids out of the emergency department if we can. We asked the foundation to help support us by helping us purchase $5,000 worth of pediatric and infant pulse oximeters. And they immediately said yes, and those are on order. They will be here next Friday. So this, when we discharge, when a parent brings a sick kid to the clinic, or we discharge them from the emergency department, this is just an extra measure. We're going to give these away to the families, to the parents. with additional education so that they go home with the tool. And again, that foundation took about 2 minutes to get back to me and say, absolutely.
That's
So,
really cool.
Yeah, I want to thank them for that. Anesthesia, we did, Dr. Martin, Dr. Noyer, and I had an opportunity last evening to meet with the 3 anesthesia providers. We explained that we believe we're at the end of that contract. The current contract actually runs through June of 2024. We had a very, I think, collaborative discussion with them, explaining that we're moving in the direction of either employing another anesthesia firm or hiring anesthesia providers. We need that fourth provider, so, and they're not having a lot of success. So I think we're very transparent about it. Again, I want to signal nothing but respect to the anesthesia providers who've taken care of this community for, 29 years, I think, and told us. But we need services beyond what they're able to provide at this time. So more to follow. But we are looking, we asked for a collaborative transfer of care, and they seem to be on board with that.
And wanted to make sure that they understood that we appreciate the service that they've given, the dedication, the contribution they made to the community, and that whatever we did had to be respectful of that. Across options.
Some more to follow and some big changes and huge opportunities.
Just the pediatric ICU bed situation, and just pediatric beds in general is really disturbing. Is there a canary coal mine phenomenon with RSV like there is with flu, or we can see what Australia has done, that sort of thing? Does it happen there first before here?
It happens quickly when it happens. I think you see an uptick and then you just hit critical mass. Because, again, it's spread by large droplets, it's spread on surfaces and clothing. And all you have to do to prevent the spread is tell kids to keep their hands away from their faces.
Is that okay?
Don't lick something somebody's touched.
Oh my gosh, it's not a kid looking in the shopping cart now, Lucy.
No.
I'm like, well, okay.
I was sharing earlier today that the worst call night I've ever had in my career was the first night of RSV season in Cleveland in 1995. And in our a hospital similar to Seattle Children's, we admitted 52 children from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. And our hospital was strained. And one day it was, gee, I wonder when it's going to happen, and the next day it happened tonight.
Is this, is it a phenomenon where it tends to end as abruptly as it started?
Oh, no.
No. Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to see strain systems, and we are seeing strain systems. One of the conversations that we've had around this is that they're probably in a situation that is comparable to August of the Delta surge. And you know that because you've seen it on the front page of every paper that you have.
It's generally a spring viral illness, isn't it?
Or spring.
Right, but this does feel early.
Yeah.
In my recollection, this is really early.
We're also seeing influenza.
It's early.
Influenza's past RSV right now. In Washington, influenza season is usually February, March.
I'm exhausted from answering all these questions.
Yeah.
Anything else I can stand on? Sure. If not, I do have an action item on the expansion project or the surgery materials management imaging project bid award. And I will just read the motion that we are looking for the board to have all their questions answered about this bid. The motion is KDA Architecture has determined the Walker Construction in Spokane, Washington provided the lowest bid for the Kittitas Valley Surgery Materials Management Imaging Project. KDA has concluded that Walker Construction's bid complied with all of the established requirements and that they are a responsible bidder. KDA recommends that the Board of Commissioners of Kittitas County Public Hospital District Number 1 award the bid for the project to Walker Construction in the amount of $17,400,000. KDA further recommends that the Board of Commissioners not accept alternatives 1, 3, and 4.
What are 1, 3, and 4?
I don't know by number. One of them was the replacing the air handler for existing radiology. He fed from the new air handler that feeds the rest of the. And one of them was for eliminating finishes in the existing area, getting those finishes to match them. And
And these would all be deductions.
These are deductible.
they're all deductible. Oh, and the third one was the third floor, redesigning that to create some storage area for the beds up there to bring it in.
All right, so did anybody memorize the language of the motion board? We just referenced what Julie said, is that acceptable?
It's been quite a journey. So, I appreciate the extra meetings we've been able to have the last month or so as we try to sift through what it all means and the various senior leaders who have expressed, their opinions on how it will help us grow and so forth. And it's been a tough decision for me. It's a lot of money. We got to predict the future a little bit. I think even if we say yes today, it's 2 years before we start to utilize the area and so forth. But I think this last meeting we had on Monday was the one that helped me kind of answer some of those remaining questions. So all that being said, because you aren't asking for a speech, you're asking for a motion. So I will move to accept the bid for the expansion project as described in the KDA document.
Moved by John,
Second.
seconded by Terry.
Discussion.
Discussion.
So, yeah, I'm with you. This is one of, some of the decisions have been just really easy. This is one of the tougher decisions because the scale, the cost. And I feel like the hospital done its job and due diligence. Look at different angles. It's the economy's a concern, the money's a concern. We'll talk about probably finance, Scott, tonight. So this last offering more appealing, and I don't think we're going to get any cheaper money in the next 4 or 5 years, probably. But it's the tough one. You support it because I think the due diligence has been done by the staff to carve out different things. So I support it.
I wish we'd been able to receive multiple bids. Wish the lowest bid had been lower, but again, we're in very unique circumstances.
No change orders.
Yeah.
I made a note. Ron says no change orders.
But we need that second CT machine. We're growing and we can't be diverting people.
An operating room is what the.
Yeah, and this safe and sterile storage areas, as we grow, just everything stacked on top of one another, and it's just not the way to function long term. So, does Matt have thoughts?
I think all my questions were answered on Monday.
Yeah.
I
Monday
appreciate
was
that.
really, really
Monday
helpful.
session was
Yeah.
I appreciate that meeting.
Thank you to everybody who participated in that meeting, either in the meeting itself or behind the scenes and contributed. That was greatly appreciated. Any more discussion or are we ready to vote?
I'll just add one more thing, and I think for the record, I appreciate Ron provided some updated square footage stuff, which actually helped because we've been talking about the cost per square footage. And I think one aspect of that was we were focused only on the new square footage and the 17.4 million for the construction costs. But Ron, again, brought to our attention that we're also redoing a whole bunch of internal square footage. We're not building new, but we're making it more functional. And that does bring the square footage cost, the cost per square foot down. And that helps too. So we're not just getting the 15,000 square feet, but a whole bunch of useful improvements in some of the current areas. So thanks, Ron, for sharing that.
Yeah,
Very
thanks
helpful.
for filling that out. All right. So, all in favor of the expansion bid project award, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Yay. It passes. Hey.
So there's some money to pay for it.
Yeah. Turn it over the cushions and such. Okay. Amanda, did you want to say anything about your contribution here to the packet or anything to highlight in particular?
No, just echoing what Julie said about our labor relations, and thank you for approving the WSNA contract. We're really excited for recruitment and retention for our nurses, and we're excited to roll out our compensation strategy for the rest of the organization as well. We just finished open enrollment yesterday. We got great feedback about all of the benefits changes we've made as well. So lots of activity happening in HR for end of year normal operation stuff. So thank you for asking.
I know HR has been busy. Thank you for all that you guys do.
Thank you.
Right. Anything else from your, okay.
Question.
All right, looks like we're moving on. Thank you. Operations, get a two for tonight. Vicki Matura, BDSA Chief Nursing Officer.
I'm still in the back row.
You can switch forward. I'll let
Call
her.
you Dickie McShutley or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was bad.
What do you think about it?
Anyway, we're on page 32. I'll take any questions. I know the emphasis that we've been working on the last 10 days is this pediatric issue. And Edie's department, Judy's department and the ED has been seeing the brunt of that. I think one day this week there were 18 peds that were seen in a day. Our numbers in the year this week rose as high as 78 on one day, which is very unusual for us. We usually, what we're budgeted for 46, 39. So the ED nonetheless has been just really busy. We did hold a peds patient for longer than we wished to, but we finally got it out to Mary Bridge yesterday. So that is an issue, and we're trying to really beef up on our equipment, especially respiratory wise, to keep these kiddos at least monitored and safe pending transfer. Most of them are okay to send home with parents and good education and teaching and teaching them how to care for them, but the ones that do need hospitalization are the ones that, of course, get bad real quickly. So. Can I jump in real quick? I just need to say, a couple of years ago, we went to 24/7 respiratory therapy coverage. I looked downstairs when I walked through the hall, I am stopped and thanked for the wonderful respiratory therapists that we have. They have been such a tremendous support in the emergency department and then also back on the unit. So it's, 2 years ago, I can't imagine what we would be doing if we didn't have folks like Jim and Russell and great call and a super resource to have.
When you have that high volume in the ED, and I know you have to prioritize some patients over others, so maybe you can't speak to this in general terms, but curious about what sort of wait times patients are getting. I mean, again, some will have hardly any because they need to be prioritized in some form, but I'm just curious if you could speak to that a little bit.
We do track that at wait times at the time they're checked into the time they're into a room or the time they're seen by the doctor. I'm sure those numbers for November will be greatly increased from October. Just with the sheer volumes, yeah, but we still have people driving up from Yakima because it's less wait time.
And one thing that we do, we use that triage room to see patients, put them back in the waiting room. We are using hallway beds, unfortunately. We are, starting testing while they're in the waiting room. So at least their care has started if we're able to. Radiology, x-rays, we're doing EKGs. And, just making sure that they're okay to go back to the waiting room. I have been able to upstaff, especially this last week or so with extra nurses. So I'm able to have a nurse that's just truly dedicated to triage and the waiting room. Monday, we did have a third provider on, which helped. And, in our acuity with those numbers, a lot of them are just, we just need to check them out and get them out the door. A lot of, worried parents. So I think the waits aren't going to be super bad. I think on Monday, we only had 3 leave without being seen, which is phenomenal. So that just tells me that at least we're talking with them. We're giving them something. Maybe they're not sitting in a room. They're still getting the care.
You say leave without being seen, do they decide that they're not?
They just don't wait. They get
Okay.
triaged and then we even have, sometimes they walk in, look at the waiting room, turn around and walk out. But they've never even made it to registration.
Okay.
But our leave without being seen rate is very low compared to averages.
Thank you.
On the clinical education staff development,
Yes.
is it fair to say that's proving successful?
Yes, with our new instructor, Deb just came to us 2-3 months ago, I guess. She, especially the charge nurse education, she found an instructor which was very well versed, and actually the feedback was very good. We've had 18 nurses attend for 2 days, so we felt that was good, mostly from the emergency department.
It's like updates for our staff are participating on the larger stage, like Madeline.
Oh, yeah, that was wonderful.
That's just so fantastic to have a voice and have that sort of an audience and just know that we have fabulous people stepping up for that. Thank you for doing that.
And Vicki, thanks for your service
Oh,
and that role of vision all these years. I mean, it's really,
thank you.
you've done a lot.
She's not going anywhere yet.
I know.
Getting nervous here. Listen, we have been interviewing for the ED position, these positions, so we are, making some progress in finding someone, so. But thank you. I actually enjoyed it.
Are you getting some quality applicants for her position?
Yes, we have. Yes, we would say they've been qualified.
Not as good.
Right.
No, never. Never. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Vicki.
Mhm.
And then, no, Rhonda, are you Rhonda?
I'm Rhonda. Well, I'm happy to answer any questions. I will update you. Rhonda's worked with KDA on a pre-design contract for family medicine Cleon, and we'll be meeting, I think, Justin has it scheduled for Monday. We're hoping Dr. Thomas will help us on that project, Ron, myself, and Rhonda. So looking at how we can expand the physical clinic so that we can grow the services.
Do you have any thoughts or questions for Rhonda's report?
Everything's going smooth with 47 degrees north.
Do you have any thoughts on the 47 degrees north? Point here.
So we did, our attorney wrote on behalf of both of the hospital districts. It was widely distributed through the community about not just like questioning really, the project and whether it was an amendment, and I think they dubbed it a major amendment, or whether in fact, given that it was so different and a 20-year-old approved project, whether it should be treated as a brand new project. So we got that question out there. Once we took that initiative, I think it was the city of Roslyn also chimed in. So the city of Cleveland has reached out to us, and they do want to meet with Ron and myself and our attorney. They had suggested that the builders, the developers, and communities would also be at the meeting. I'm not looking to have a deal brokered, so we really ask that we just have a meeting with the city of Cleveland at this point, so that we can further express our concerns. Again, I'm not prepared to sit down and with some communities and be pitched a project. So I don't feel like that's the hospital district's role. Other than that.
And so, Jim is like a year of, about a year heads up for his departure.
Correct. Actually, it's more like 8 years. He's been saying he's going to retire, but we have an email, we have a real notification.
He's gonna be one of those people who's good at retiring, or just he's a long.
The outside interest, so
Yeah.
he may very well be pretty good at it.
Okay, all right.
He's looking pretty happy. Thank you.
His service is also very appreciated. All right. Thank you, Rhonda, for that report. Stacy Alea, Chief of Clinic Operations.
Thank you. My report's on pages 35, 36, and 37. Just to add to the RSV update, we are working with the clinic staff and hope to be able to open up a significant number of same-day appointments by next week. So we're working on clinic space and staffing. Otherwise, I am happy to answer any questions.
And all your floods.
I have the dermatology flood in there. Staff arrived early on November 4th and found a large amount of water on the floor, and the faucet in the hallway sink completely popped off the top and was running all night. So that, it caused significant damage because the water whipped up the wall.
Can you say it? I'm trying to envision how this, so it comes off and like just sprays up and.
I don't think it was spraying up and out, but it was running out of the sink. It just was completely off. Colin sent me a picture, and the handle itself was like in the sink basin, and it was just off.
I've never heard of such a thing. That's so strange.
Yeah.
And it can conveniently just run into the sink and down the drain.
No, it of course ran down the side, and down to the floor, and throughout most of the clinic. So we had an area sectioned off the last couple of weeks. Next week, we are gonna have to close down 2 clinic rooms, but it works really well because Julia Real will be on vacation those 2 weeks, so we'll only have 1 provider in the clinic. And they can operate the plan. And then Monday this week, general surgery had a flood. It was a toilet issue. Apparently the tank overflowed and it was over a weekend. So when staff came in the morning, when they noticed a wet spot in the hallway floor. I thought, well, that's really odd. And then walked up to the front of the clinic, and the carpet was squishy, and you could just see water coming out.
It kind of sounds like our plumbing is out to get us.
Yes. So that's going to also, we had water work up the walls, so we were gonna have some containment there and some issues to deal there. So I flooded 2 clinics in 2 months.
Gary Barr still has the record for swamping the entire family medicine Cleveland, so.
Yeah, that's true.
That was the water break and the.
Yeah,
Yes, that was.
Yeah, water leak alarm. my house, I have 3 of them, and a drop of water, it texts me immediately.
Yeah.
It just feels like if this is,
Is it a sensor that it has to contact it? Do you have to?
yeah, it just got little metal feet, and the water creates the
Okay, so you
continuity.
put it near your likely places where you have
Yeah,
it.
and so I put
Okay.
it at potential, at the weakest points of the plumbing. And it's done, twice it's probably saved me
Will you text me?
a lot of money, because it tells me immediately there's a leak. And rather than like, say, come back for a weekend, and the 10,000 gallons, I have half a gallon, so. Yeah, I don't know, it's just, and I hate disrupting the patients, you know, and it worked out with the vacation, good, great strategy there, but, yeah. I don't know.
Oh. Any other thoughts or questions for Stacy before we proceed?
Continue to get settled in.
Yes, I know.
Any other support we can offer you to make it easier, or you've got everything you need, or?
This time we have everything ready.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. All right, medical staff, chief of staff, Dr. Timothy O'Brien.
I see the list on there. Virtual committee, the 5 PD providers from the Yakima line. Fill in. And the new pediatrician, Andrew Henderson. That's all new. And then we have Dr. Ginger Longo, Tom Erich, and Rob Wagner, the appointments, and then 2 remote. 1 telestroke and 1 on-red. And we recommend you approve these applications.
To move.
Second.
Moved by Bob and seconded by Matt to approve the recommendation for appointment and reappointment. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Passes.
Thank you. Then we have one other thing, we had to create a new document, determination of privileges for telecardiology. And used basically a standard form. Privilege. Very simple. Yeah, you can. Just a form to process the applications for teleradiologists and technically telecardiologists.
And telecardiologists, they would be interpreting
Yeah,
monitors or?
it's like tell the doctor.
These are visits that the patients would have with their provider, not like teleradiologists where they're reading something that's been ordered by another provider.
Well, it could be that, yeah, but they can also be actually involved with the patient.
More typically, we see it being in the emergency department, for copying it.
So they're reading UKGs or Gs or?
Probably. I don't see them reading echoes.
Do they talk directly with the patient, like through a screen or something now?
It's basically the same workstation that we use for telestroke. So it's got a high-res camera and a screen that you can get it in. Our attendings can facilitate the exam, which they might not be able to do. And come up with a plan. The question is this patient that we can care for? Should they facilitate this decision?
Excellent.
I have just a question about process, because I'm having trouble placing this. So we have to approve this. Is that because it has to do with requirements for privileging? And so there are documents like this for everything else? And they've been approved prior to this.
Didn't we do another one a couple months ago for?
Yeah, it's used to all be done by paper, you know.
Yeah.
Now they switched to electronic. That's a lot simpler.
Okay.
But we still need kind of a basic. input.
Right, okay. So these stand outside of bylaws and stuff like that. This is, I get it. Thank you.
Motion,
Please,
I'll move to approve the new delineation of privileges for telecardiology.
Second.
been moved by John and seconded by Carrie. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Thank you, Dr. Wright.
Wonderful.
Do you have anything else for us?
That's it, thank you guys.
Thank you.
You have my report, starting on page.
Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Martin.
Wait your turn.
Well, I'm just, jumping, I think it's appropriate for me to jump the gun because Dr. O'Brien didn't finish his report. In addition to my report, medical staff held elections earlier this month. Dr. O'Brien did not stand for re-election. Effective January 1st, Dr. Roberta Hoppy is our new chief of staff. Dr. Ginger Longo is our new vice chief of staff. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. O'Brien for his years of service to this institution, this community, his leadership, his mentorship of surgeons, of me. Thank you.
Just for the record, we will be having a celebration with Dr. O'Brien on December 15th. So you should be receiving an invitation to that, and he will be here for a physical handoff at your January 5th meeting with Dr. Hoppy.
Yeah, I'll be here.
So we're going to embarrass him on January 5th more fully.
That wasn't in my report because I thought it was a medical staff issue. The only thing, other thing I would add is that, as we've been alluding to all night, transfers are increasingly difficult. When I wrote this report a week ago, I won't say that we were waiting for the other shoe to drop. You can see it being a tie, but it has fallen. And it would be a very interesting.
What sort of supports, when we talk about the elderly population and how they're being hit hard with RSV, more so than previous years, when they are admitted, what kind of supports are they requiring? Is it oxygen and fluids or?
Yeah. It's interesting, most of the things that we traditionally do for RSV, the more we study them, the less we think they work. And so that it really is support and tincture of time.
Okay.
The other thing is that we're, in recent years, we've gained an appreciation of, there are so many viruses that we weren't aware of. Whether that's novel coronavirus, whether that's things like human metapneumovirus. And we said, oh, those are kids' diseases. Well, it turns out that if you look at somebody admitted for a COPD exacerbation, they often test positive for one of those more obscure viruses. But again, we don't really have good local treatment for those. It's still supportive care and tincture of time. And they just on the calendar one day at a time.
So we aren't gonna crunch for specialized equipment or that sort of thing. It's not like when we were looking down the barrel of COVID the first time and we thought that we needed every.
That supportive care could include ventilation.
Okay.
And we still have more ventilators than we have staff to run them.
Most precious commodity here is the staff to care for.
It usually comes down to staff, stuff. We've got stuff. And we've got space. It's staff that's going to be our rate limiting step. And that, again, one of the things that has played into the current bed shortage across the state was a number of larger systems deciding that they could no longer afford to pay traveling nurses. And so leading up to respiratory viruses season, systems such as, well, even Memorial terminated their traveling nurse contracts as of October 1st outside of the emergency department, which cost them roughly 100 beds of capacity. And they aren't the only ones. That happened a lot on the west side as well. So it's going to be an interesting month. We're back in incident command. We managed to stay out of incident command for 20 days from November 3rd to November 23rd.
It's been 20 days since we weren't dealing with those, like a work site injury.
Yeah.
20 days since incident command.
Michelle, I'm sure has her hand up. I'm running again.
I'm kind of tired of interesting winters.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I personally would like to suggest that we all enjoy pouring winter on the South Sea Island somewhere, but
I want to take a minute to thank Dr. Martin and his team, particularly Shannon and Catherine. We are down 2 providers in the emergency department, and you just approved 5 emergency associates of Yakima folks that Dr. Martin reached out to. Shannon got credentials, Catherine got contracts to. We had huge holes in the schedule. They were very, very diligent to get those covered. And it sort of went unnoticed a moment ago that Dee Dee said, I am upstaffing in the emergency department. Dee Dee has some extra staff to put in the emergency department. Dr. Monick is, as someone pointed out, we had 3 providers the other day. So despite the fact that, you know, we are short staffed, particularly in the provider department and the emergency department, Dr. Martin and his team have been able to keep that department staffed.
the other thing that we're working on frantically is how to keep patients out of the emergency department. And to that end, we are working to bring a recently retired pediatrician out of Mount Boston.
Oh,
Very, very anxious to help us. And,
Yes.
no, it's not a surprise to you.
no.
And we thought we had hit a snag with that, but it looks like that will be fairly readily cleared. There was a licensing issue. But her retirement is sufficiently recent that they're considering the late renewal rather than new application.
How does that work with credentialing? Does the previous credentialing stand until it's expired, or do we re-credential?
Her privileges were coterminous with her employment, so she will have to go back through HR. I think we can probably prevail upon the CEO and the chief of staff to give emergency privileges pending approval by the board. I don't think that makes anybody too uncomfortable.
That one's flagged.
And that's what the clinic is working on, is she would be available. She said maybe 3 to 4 days, half days, and the goal would be she sees urgent same-day patients only.
That's huge. All right.
One quick question, just so I understand, like your interviews, you said like internal medicine, 4 MDs. Is this since your last report you interviewed for? How are you feeling about some of this?
There's one of the MP candidates that we're optimistic about. We've run into a snag because some of these are foreign medicine graduates, and until the IRS blesses our 501c3, we can't sponsor an H-1B visa. Sponsor a J-1, but not an H-1B. And so we're hearing that we're looking at 6 to 9 months from when we complete our application.
Yikes. That fast stuff.
Yeah. Well, one of the pediatricians that we were bringing on was an H-1B, and I had the pleasure just before Thanksgiving of letting her know that we had to withdraw our offer because I can't give her a timeline to bring her forward. So
At least we're working on it. I mean, the applications in the pipeline.
Thanks for all your efforts. Really challenging.
Scott, are you the principal in completing that application? Does it look worse than a tax document, like personal tax forms? It's pretty clear.
It's a lot of time.
Thank you.
Supporting.
Anything else for or from Dr. Lee? All right, thank you. Up, you've got Chief Financial Officer Scott Oliver with the Financials report.
Thank you. If you start at page 44, and that is our statistical area, and you'll see that our clinical staff is, and doctors have been really working hard. Line 2, you see patient days, well in excess of budget for the month and year to date. Surgeries have been busy. Line 11, right at budget for inpatient. Line 12, in excess of budget for outpatient surgeries. And a plus 13 variance on surgeries. That actually, from a revenue perspective, is a big deal. Those are surgery procedures drive a lot of revenue. GI procedures a little below budget. ER has been very, very busy for in October and now in November. ER or urgent care. So nearly all positive variances.
Scott, I don't want to take too long on this because it just might be my problem, but line 11, if we're right at budget at 22, why is the variance 1.4%?
It's a rounding.
Oh.
There's a decimal.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Clinics down on line 28, you see a positive variance of nearly 500 visits. So people have been working very, very hard, and with all of that hard work, we had a very nice positive revenue variance over on page 47. So a $1.5 million positive revenue variance for the month. And year to date on revenue, we are now exceeding our revenue target for the year to date revenue. On the contractual line, on the other deduction line, if you'll go over to the variances on contractuals, a negative variance on contractuals is a good thing. $2.4 million negative variance, and then down on the other deductions line, if you look at year to date, $1,258,000, and you look at prior year, $2.6 million. Some of the on the contractual line, that I've said before that we're getting paid better by our contracts. That line is helping not having Kaiser is a reason for that positive variance on the contractual line. And on the other deduction line, RevCycle has made a concerted effort to be timely with billings and yet not lose the adjustments. You're not having to, because we don't bill timely, we don't get paid for something. So it's twofold. It's the revenue cycle team that has done work to get bills out timely. And also we have amended some of our contracts to allow a longer period of time to get bills in too. So it's twofold. But the net result is year to date, we're about $1.3 million better than we were a year ago on other deductions and administrative adjustments. So anyway, just these, you don't see some of the effort in some of these lines. So I just wanted to point out a lot of work has been happened, and that both those numbers lead to improved numbers on our bottom line. So on the expenses, we have for the month of October, we were almost $8 million over budget on expenses. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is we've hired some additional staff in the county department who help us keep up with the work. And we're getting our invoices in, capturing them and paying them timely. And so we're $1.7 million over budget for the month. Year to date on expenses, we're 2.1 billion. So we caught up on a lot of things. So and then the other piece just on the temporary labor line is we're $715,000 over budget for the month on temporary labor. And year to date, we're at $3.8 million. And part of, I've got another resolution here, 22-12, to ask for to increase the budget expenses that we have allowed in the $3.8 million variance on temporary labor is part of the reasons we're going to spend more money than we budgeted last year.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare that to prior year to date, it's crazy.
Yeah, and so, but that said, this is not, without that temporary labor, some of that labor is in ER, some of it's in med surg, some of it is in ICU. I know we have some in the clinics, in hospice and home health. Without that labor, we are not able to care for the patients that we have. So this is a variance, but it's a needed variance. So it's absolutely critical that we have that.
But yeah, it's it's a lot. I didn't interrupt you, Scott. Sorry, but yeah, it's allowing for access, and it seems like we can absorb it, the increased demand and everything. So yeah, that's good.
So for the month, with the catch-up on expenses that occurred, and probably there's about $500,000 to $600,000 of catch-up expenses in this number, and with the additional $715,000 in temporary labor, we ended up with just a small operating income of $93,000 for the month, which was below our budget. We actually had an unrealized gain on our investments, and so we ended up with a positive net income for the month of almost $98,000. Year to date, we on operating income, we're in good shape, 6.5 million versus budget of 5.6. And then with the unrealized losses that we have on investments, we're at a net income of 4.9 million versus a budget of 5.9. So we're a little behind on the net, but the key word is unrealized. And so we will end up being fine with that. So all in all, pretty good numbers to report. I will say that on page 46, on the days and accounts receivable, we've had the last 2 months have been very, very busy months. We exceeded our revenue budget by about 1.6, 1.5, and that is the reason for the uptick in the days and accounts receivable. We've had a good month in collections in November. That number is, we had it takes about 60 days to get things paid. If you have 2 big months, and then by the third month, the revenue starts to come, or the cash starts to come in. So I feel pretty good about where we're at right now. And questions about the staff and finances? Okay. And Mitchell's report is here, and didn't have any new big numbers to report, so but we're still actively looking at grant opportunities for ACHN, the hospital, and District 2. He has been working to try to get some of the grant money related to the lab expansion. The state, we've got about $400,000 of the legislative grant, and we're working with an attorney in the Department of Commerce to get that money in. It's been a bit of a challenge. Then I have one request for capital. This is our 3D mammography machine. The current lease is the lease is up. You have the option of either extending the lease or buying out the lease. And the cost to buy out the 3D mammography machine is $124,000. And if we get the lease cost to extend it is about the same. We think that for the next 2 years, if we go beyond 2 years, we'll make money on the arrangement. So we're trying to buy out as many of our capital equipment leases as we possibly can. It is financially long-term a better option to own rather than to, the function life of an asset is often significantly longer than the lease life of the account.
So are you looking at formation?
Or on the capital equipment.
Do we need a motion for this?
Capital.
What? Yes, we do. Yep. Well, I move to do the capital budget to buy the 3D mammogram machine.
Been moved by Carrie, seconded by Bob Kingsbrook, to approve the capital expenditure request from the mammography machine. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say nay.
Thank you very much. And then, as I alluded to, there's a resolution 22-12, and there is we have add on the exhibit A attached on page 54, we've added an additional 10 million of expense to the 2022 budget of 107,824,000. So this would increase the expenses we're authorized to spend to $117 million. And it relates to some of the additional volume we're having, and then also to some of the additional costs that we're having with traveling nurses.
Need a motion on that, Scott?
Yes.
I move to approve resolution number 22-12.
Second.
Moved by John and seconded by Matt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. That also passes.
So, and Matt's vice president.
I think we got the correct on the document signed.
This,
Oh, that's the such.
I'll have to, I've got it.
Guys with the eagle eyes.
We called that, so that's. Yep. And then lastly, Julie's motion the motion to accept the bid was one paragraph and about 6 lines. We have the resolution 22-13 is a resolution to borrow $15,310,000 from
Can you say that number one more time?
22-1.
Oh, sorry, the money number?
Oh, excuse me. $15,310,000.
Thank you.
And this is an 18-page legal document that was drafted by Brad Berg with Foster Garvey. And it authorizes the district to do tax exempt borrowing to fund this expansion project. And the interest rate that we're opting to do the financing over a 20-year period, it will be a fixed rate for the first 10 years, and then we'll reset. And the interest rate that we have right now is at 4.1%. When we met at the finance committee, it was 4.25 for 20 years. So it actually has come down just a little bit. And so this will, we would, if this is approved, we would lock the rates. These would be the rates that we would be locked in at. And we'd have these funds available to work on the expansion project.
Everybody needs their early
There is
penalty for that.
there is for the first 5 years, at year 7, we can pay the debt off without any penalty at all.
At the finance meeting, we discussed the pros and cons of 15-year versus 20-year. Since the rates are very comparable and we have this payoff window starting at year 7 and kind of a mandatory at year 10 is essentially a balloon payment or just resets at whatever the market rate at that time. So the discussion was if a few years into the future, we have some other project that requires debt, keeping the number a little lower, it's approximately $300,000 difference per year on debt service. And there's just all these ratios they use as to what future debt we can get. The recommendation after a long discussion was 20-year makes sense because that $300,000 helps keep your ratio kind of ideal for anything future we need to do next 5-7 years or so. So even though as consumers, short is better in this case, I was convinced that the 20-year is the most logical to keep our options open into the future. And with the 7-year payoff, we've got a window at some point if we wanted to cash out, we could do it past year 3 anyway. So, even for a motion, then Scott, or is it
a motion on that?
So,
There's been, as far as my comment, a lot of discussions, a lot of debate, a lot of going back and forth. Let's relook at the numbers, going higher, going lower. Makes sense was as far as my opinion.
I know that you guys have been meeting a lot, and having a lot of discussion, and thank you, both of you, for who participated in that. I know that's fun.
Yeah, John's kind of big believer in that.
so we felt a lot of responsibility to just again make the whole thing as smart as possible. So again, I appreciate everybody's time educating us, answering questions, even if the questions weren't great questions.
This is one of those cases where, since you guys have been so involved in the process, I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I'm going to defer to you guys.
Yeah, it's in combination with the decision we made a little while ago tonight to move forward with the expansion project. This makes sense. It keeps some of our cash reserves available, for hospital operations. It pays a little bit less than half of the commitment to the expansion project. Even that little rate change, is a noticeable amount of money each year that we're saving. But I think, I don't know if having that extra discussion allowed him to go back with some strength and say, look, these people are on the fence. Let's really squeeze this interest rate to try to push us over. So again, I appreciate,
I think it helps.
that they came back with that. So, so I don't know if we want more discussion, but I'll move to approve the resolution to issue the debt of $15.31 million and on the 20-year terms.
Moved by John and seconded by Bob.
Just read that contract really carefully when the final draft comes in, to make sure you didn't slip in a paragraph or something.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Woo, that one passes too. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Anything else? Thank you.
Very much. Scott, thank you for all your work on that. I know there's a lot behind the scenes making that forward.
Thank you.
All right. It looks like we are moving on to Community Relations Report with Chief Public Relations Officer Michelle Wolf.
Hey guys. So you have my report in front of you, and we have a little powwow going on Saturday. I believe Justin put in front of you it's the official program, but it's not in the official format. It's at the printer for that. So it'll look a little bit nicer, as well as the run through for the actual ceremony. So
Thank you. I appreciate the detail on this.
hey,
Really, I mean, it's very helpful.
You're very, very welcome. I know I wanted to capture the highlights. Julie, for example, will take my highlights and she will use her own language, and that's absolutely wonderful because Julie speaks more eloquently than I can write. You guys are welcome to do whatever, and I am happy to speak with you as a group or individually on how you want to proceed with this. The concept is really, we're going to kick off the, it's meant to be a social evening, a relaxing evening for the staff to get together. What we found in the few opportunities that we've started to have, whether it's through the Team Steps training or some of the different department meetings, just the opportunity to get together and collaborate or actually just speak to each other, not necessarily in a mask, is the most helpful thing we can do. So we're really keeping the evening relaxed with a little bit of ceremony and some activities for people to do so we can basically reacquaint ourselves with each other and see each other in a social environment. So we kick off the evening for an hour of that. We'll open up the buffet at 6. And then at 6:30 is when we kick into the one and only program we have. The thought process there was Julie could welcome everybody, and Erica as board president can also participate in that. So we can't ignore the elephant in the room of COVID. There's a reason we haven't gotten together for almost 3 years now. And we had some staff get together. The CWU students did a great job. As I was it's about a 7-minute video. And as I was 2 minutes in on my desk, I found myself smiling with the stories that people were telling. And that's the purpose. That's what we're wanting to do. So Julie will kick it off with a welcome. And yes, this is what we've been through, and we have survived. We recognize that it's difficult, but we have survived. And so let's take a little bit of a look back onto that. And then now, how do we move forward? Let's look at everything. Let's appreciate what we have done as we have come through this pandemic. And Erica, that's where you get to, kick it off to say, now we're here to celebrate. Now we're here to talk about the appreciation. As our 2 quality representatives, Matt and Terry, we'll have 2 people present that are due for Safe Catch Awards. So I put that in your script. You'll see there, Chris Adal will actually be getting 2. They are aware. And I see Mandy over there shaking her head. So she's either going to get me or get you the certificates or the awards that we will be presenting to them through this presentation. And then after the presentation, Matt, if you'll stay on stage with me to go through that acknowledgement point where we have people standing up to prove that it's a team. Terry, if you're good with going off, we have a photographer there and they can take pictures with a board member and the awardees. We'll run through that and then just kick people back into, now go celebrate, go have fun. We'll have about another hour and a half of that, at which point we'll just start drawing prizes and winners for people that we're doing what we're kind of calling the scavenger hunt, where they have a card that can be completely filled out through looking at those appreciation posters. So we're saying, find somebody that's write a name of somebody that's worked here for 20 years. Find somebody that's done an improvement project. The only answer that is not on a board that is a question is name one of our board members. So I would ask that my board members present actually wear their name tag that says the Board of Commissioners. That's the only thing we don't have on an appreciation board that I want us to, you guys will be on stage. And so they should be able to figure this out. But I had to add a little bit of a challenge to it because that's who I am.
So Michelle, I don't want to make your life complicated.
Never.
This isn't about an Oxford comma. I'll be on the stage already.
Yes.
So I don't mind sort of giving that little intro thing, but how would you feel about bringing John and Bob up to sort of read those, if you submitted a Safe Catch, stand up, if you stand up. So maybe like Bob could do the first 2 or the second 2 and John could do the,
I am 100% okay with you exiting the stage and me not being up there and them doing that if they're okay with that.
Yeah, why don't you guys do that?
You did not run that by us.
I did not run that by you.
Yeah,
Matt
they
put
will
you on the
already
spot,
run me.
not me.
Gone for a while. But, you wanna,
Where are you talking about?
oh, you can't make it?
I can't.
Okay, so Bob will be there. Are you gonna be there?
I'm scared to answer that now. Where are you
Well, and
talking
he,
about?
The last page.
Last page?
The back and forth.
the very last page. And John, if you're comfortable with it, for example, Matt, you can pop down with Terry. And John, you can pop up and do that with me.
I'll pretty much do whatever you tell me. But I just need to know, is this black tie? I just don't want to
No.
underdress.
No, it is not black tie. Just in conversation with staff as we were developing this, there were two things that we were encountering. Number one, people thought this was the foundation gala. And we did not want to confuse that situation or take anything away from that. Number two, we've never done this before with the organization. And there is some hesitancy of, I'm not going to fit in, I'm not going to be able to do this. And because I made the decision, it was more important for people to get there and relax and socialize and be with their colleagues than to worry about attire. That HR actually came up with. Jen Strader, she just told somebody, come as you are. You know, if you're comfortable in jeans and a sports coat, come in jeans and a sports coat. If you want to be in holiday attire, come in holiday attire. So I, for example, am probably going to do a nice pair of jeans and a nice jacket or something like that. So no, it's not black tie.
And were you saying we're supposed to wear our badges? I didn't understand.
Well, the reason I'm telling you guys to wear your badges is because you are the one answer that is not on a board, that if somebody wants to fill out their scavenger card and say, name a board member, they'll actually have to be able to figure that out. Now, all of you coming on stage should help that. So it's your call.
I think if no one else is wearing their badge, it would be weird.
That's fine. I trust me, you will not get in trouble.
Part of the game is if you introduce Matt, Eric. and stuff,
Exactly.
they've had their chance.
Or they can come introduce us. I'd love to.
Yeah, and some people absolutely love that. I was really trying to take the quote unquote fear out of this event since it's so new. And then I think, next year, we had great ideas about, actually go find somebody that hates cilantro. It's like one of those things that requires you to start talking to people. But there's just a lot of apprehension and unknowns. So I'm trying to make it really easy this time around.
So Michelle, I think just to ease the transition, here's what I'm gonna suggest, and I can work it out with John too.
Okay.
But you say what you were planning to say on the last page there.
Yep.
And then I'll sort of do that little introductory 2 lines, and then I'll say, we're gonna do a little exercise, and to do that, I'm gonna invite up
Perfect.
Mr. Ward, and then you
I
can.
love it.
You can, and then you and he can trade, is that okay?
That's absolutely wonderful. And then I'll instruct, so we have the CWU newspaper, one of the CWU newspaper photographers is going to be our photographer for the event. So I'll make sure, I'm going to have him stick around to take pictures of the Safe Catch winners.
Yeah.
And so I'll let him know to wait until you're off the stage so you can join Terry and the team and be included in those pictures.
That sounds good, thank you, Michelle.
No, thank you. That's a great suggestion.
When will attendees receive their scavenger card? Is that when they first arrive?
Yes, when people come in and check in, it's literally, we'll just have a list with names and we'll be giving people the program that's in front of you as well as the scavenger card. And the concept of that scavenger card is, again, just to kind of draw attention. We're going to be having a slideshow rolling in the background with the same information that's on these posters. So years of service, Safe Catch Awards, Daisy Awards, monthly step winners, values, all of that stuff is going to be around the ballroom, but we're also going to have it running on a slideshow. And we know some people look at it visually, some people are going to walk around. So the point is to appreciate all of the hard work that we've been doing. And even tying it in, it's important to tie in these safe catches. One of the things that you'll see in the script that we're talking about is stand up if you've submitted or responded to a Verge. Those are critical because that's patient safety. And so we really want to tie in, keep that safety culture, whether it's Safe Catch or Verge. We want to be talking about these things because all of that enhances the work that we're doing. John, we may have to get creative at the very end if everybody isn't standing up. I figure I was trying to create things on those lines. If anybody isn't standing up after surviving COVID, never wanting to do it again, then, we'll have to kind of call that person out and be a little bit humorous on why are you not on your feet? But the goal here is I wanted to even make sure that the guests, we have spouses and significant others and, things attending this event. And the reality of it, I don't know about you, but I couldn't do the work I'm doing without my significant other, and they're part of the team as well. So everybody that's going to come into that ballroom should be appreciated. I also want to call out that people who are not able to join us because they're working that evening, I'm reaching out to their managers right now as soon as we're done to get their names to make sure that we are entering them in for prizes. And then we're going to have dinner delivered, pizza and salad and things like that. So that even though they can't be joining us, that they know that they're not forgotten and they're part of the team as well.
That's good. Real quick, so on page 2, or the start of the 2022 appreciation banquet sheet, says ceremony 6 p.m.
Yeah.
On the outline, it's got ceremony at 6:30, 30 minutes after dinner started. Do you know?
Yeah, it's 6:30. Welcome to me trying to do too much at one time. So the ceremony actually begins at 6:30.
So Julie would start speaking at 6:30.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll give
done at 6:32.
Yeah, so we'll give about a half hour for the banquet to run without any interruption, the buffet to run without any interruptions. And then we'll start the ceremony at that point. Appetizers will be out when people arrive. We will also there's a cash bar. I emphasize cash for any alcoholic beverages, and then non-alcoholic beverages, tea, water, and soda are available free of charge, and they'll be out throughout the event. And then at 6:30, the buffet will be open. It will remain open throughout the ceremony.
Michelle, that's different again from this. Buffet is at 6 or 6:30?
6.
You said 6:30.
You just said 6:30, so we're just.
Okay. Yeah, you guys are like.
So dinner buffet at 6, the
Yes.
remarks start at 6:30,
Yes,
and the drawing will happen around 8 o'clock or the.
correct.
Okay.
You got it. Thank you.
Michelle,
for keeping me-
Can I suggest that your activity with the people standing up, and you mentioned the COVID one,
Yes.
if people don't stand up, they might be reading it like I first did. I was a little confused because if I catch COVID again, I definitely want to survive it again. I don't want to catch it again, but if I do, please let me.
Because was your intent, not COVID, like getting the illness yourself, but COVID, the epidemic?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we should change in there, because yes, that's exactly what my intent was.
Which one?
The epidemic.
So not that you personally got it, survived it, because
Correct.
that's kind of dark.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought there's a real survivor's bias here, first of all.
Sorry.
Honestly, I really
Yeah.
appreciate, I really appreciate,
It might have been a
this.
room significantly divided, depending
Yes.
on left, right brain, so.
Completely understand. Any other questions, feedback, suggestions? I really appreciate it.
Looks great to me. Thank you for doing your work on this.
Thank
Oh,
you.
no problem. I'm also extremely happy to announce, though I can't share a name yet. We did extend an offer today for our communications outreach coordinator, and the individual has accepted. And so everything going as planned, we should have someone to fill that need at the beginning of the year. So I'm really excited about that. It should enhance both our outward facing outreach as well as our staff and our providers. So it'll be exciting.
Would that person consider working as an assistant physician recruiter?
No, I am not going to allow you to have contact with that person.
Michelle, RSVPs for the banquet, are we still at about 2:30?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
I'm on the RSV again. Then you added the P, and it got happier.
Any other questions or comments tonight?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I know that this is, you're always in a busy season. I know this is especially busy. Thank you.
No, it's all good. Like Dr. Martin said, I had a whopping 20 days of no official incident command. So it was fun to kind of focus on other things.
All right. Education and board reports. Thank you tonight. Old business. Also vacant. New business. You say. Guess that brings us to executive session.
And we point out,
Yes.
under future meetings, there's a December 13th executive session now to review the CEO's evaluation, I
Thank you.
understand.
Old business, sorry, I wanted to point out something there. Let's just rewind to 8. So the, meant to put this, can I talk about this even though I didn't insert it in the agenda? The board self-eval. We spent a good deal of time talking about that evaluation as far as what our own thoughts were on our strengths and weaknesses and such. And then also the feedback from SLT, which I thought was really fantastic and thoughtful, and I feel like the people who contributed really put a lot of consideration into the comments that were shared, and it was appreciated very much. And we got some good ideas from it, and we are going to be working as a board to incorporate improvements where we can, and have maybe some creative ways to address other thoughts that SLT had. So stay tuned on that. I just wanted to thank you all very much for your participation in that, and you are heard and you are appreciated very much. So now we can go back up the whole business here to recess to executive session to discuss personnel only.
Personnel and property.
Oh, right. Okay. How long do you think we need?
Properties, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. What do we think for the personnel? 20 minutes, 30 minutes? I'm always a time optimist when it comes to this. 20, 30 minutes to discuss.
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
Say 30 for executive session.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. 30 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yes.
So it's 7:06 right now. Do we want to, how long do we reconvene at 7:14?
Sure.
8-minute break?
I'm gonna ask, maybe Olson, the paper.
Mandy. Okay. Oh, and that is by RCW 42.30.110.
So is everybody head out? Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Scott, you. Thanks. I haven't done that for 2 years. Ron? Did that bid include Julie's water feature?
You're so serious.
Yes, see the two. I'm knocking out all the time. I've already started my secret. They're not the ones. No, I have. Yeah.